Well, my introduction perhaps was important. The minute you say Gurgaon or Gurugram, well, the first name that comes to your mind is always DLF. DLF connects what looked like an impossible dream into a reality. And it is my pleasure to now bring the top management of DLF on this edition of ET on the Go. Now, DLF, when it went public, it really created a lot of hurrah. Then came the downturn. But the magical part about DLF is that they've not only survived the storm, they have emerged as India's largest real estate company in this world which is full of twists and turns. So we'll talk about how have they done it, where is the company headed, what is this wonderful space, and how many more new mega projects DLF is planning to create. Gives me great pleasure now to bring on board Mr. Sriram Khattar. Sir, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you.
Hi, sir.
Thank you very much for joining us. जब मैं एक छोटा बच्चा था यहाँ पर आता था, यहाँ पर सड़क नहीं होती थी, जंगल होते थे.
बिल्कुल ठीक है.
Today it is a bustling city, high rises, startup. You made the impossible look easy.
No, it's obviously been a very long journey. You know, I mean, DLF, I don't know, started 75 years back. You know, just near partition and developed a lot of Delhi colonies. And I think since early 1980, they began developing Gurgaon. And I mean, it's been both a labor of love and extreme hard work. You know, coupled with obviously extremely strong support from the government that what you see as Gurugram today is what's come about.
They say that you stand in DLF and can look here, and even look up now. Everything belongs to DLF.
ऐसे कुछ नहीं है.
Nothing like that.
No, I think Ashok is very right. It's really the labor of love. But it also now showcases and demonstrates the real spirit of India.
Yeah.
The aspiring Indians, the happy Indians, the Indians who know the globe, the Indians who know their business, and the Indians who are now raring to, I dare say, conquer the world.
Okay, I'm going to start with something very basic, something which I'm also curious to know the answer, and I'm sure viewers also want to know, that real estate always is a cyclical sector.
Yes.
Up, down. It is believed that the real estate cycle is a 7-year cycle, and if one assumes that it started from 2020 or 2021, we are almost midway of that cycle. Is it true?
So it's been cyclical in the past, you are right. Obviously, at some stage, it will be cyclical again. Whether it's 7 years or 10 years, honestly, is something that is very speculative. And the good news is that today India is in such a wonderful place from an economic and a political stability standpoint that really there at least don't appear to be any internal triggers for a potential downturn of the cycle. You know, obviously one can never discount any external factor, but India is today in an extremely strong position locally in terms of its economics, in terms of its policy making, in terms of its obviously political stability. So I hope that this cycle continues and sustains longer than the past. Sriram.
Yeah, so, you know, you have to look at, it's difficult to talk of a real estate cycle because real estate is a aggregation of different business verticals. Now, if I talk of the commercial and the retail vertical, I think the commercial or the offices business, as we loosely call it, with the global capability centers finding India a very compelling reason because of the dual competitive advantage of English-speaking, highly qualified, hard-working young Indians on one side and global quality real estate at a fraction of cost on the other. So I believe that for the next few years, this will continue to be the trend. And in retail, I think the growth story has just started. Retail grows at a pace faster than the country's GDP. And within retail, organized retail grows even faster. The only thing is that sometimes the Western world looks at it from the prism of what's happening in their country. And that becomes a little dampening. But other than that, if you look at India in its own thing, I think the future looks to be bright.
But Mr. Tyagi, the J-curve effect in the real estate sector, especially prices in Gurgaon or Gurugram, some parts they are up more than 100%. That could be largely because between 2010 and 2020, we did not see any appreciation. So things are simply equalizing. But have they equalized as per the GDP trend now?
So I don't know whether there's a direct GDP trend or not, but you're right that in the last 3 years, if you see the price, I mean, it looks hugely J. But if you look at, say, a 10-year cycle, it's actually more moderate, and to some degree the market is compensating for the 6 or 7 years of extreme downturn and plateauing that had happened. But clearly, I mean, there is optimism in the air, so there's no reason why the pricing does not strengthen going forward. Obviously, the pace of it could moderate, I'm not saying that. But clearly, I think we are all living right now in a more optimistic scenario, at least for our, I'd say, the premium and the luxury and the super luxury products. And I think that's what one is seeing in the pricing piece also. Second thing, at least in NCR, is that while the demand's gone up, the supply has reduced. So there aren't as many players today as there were, say, 10 years back. So there's been a constriction of supply, and I'll say a shift to more credible players now. So those credible players are enjoying a price premium, which may not have been there had the market been as wide as it was 10 years back.
Mr. Tyagi, real estate development, or at least developers till about 5 years ago, they did not have a good reputation, right? Before RERA. Now reputation has changed, balance sheet has changed, market cap has changed. ऐसा तो magic ही हो गया.
Magic pata nahi, but you are right. RERA and GST have both led to a fundamental shift in the business practices, and also you are right in terms of weeding out at least the developers who could not sort of cope up with the changes. I mean, you'd see a lot of developers who were there very, very, very big market share 10 years back, no longer being in play now. And partially it's just a question of, I mean, when GST and RERA came, for about 4 months, 5 months, we stopped sales completely. Because we said, let's first attune our internal systems. So for about 5 to 6 months, we actually had zero sales. Once we are sure that now we can work with the new model, that's when we recommenced in that sense. And you're right, I mean, obviously 70% of the money being escrowed, etc., are operating issues. But the fact is, overall, it's led to a far more disciplined, life. And hence, the more credible and the bigger players have sort of prospered. B, you are right, most bigger players have sort of deleveraged their balance sheet, which I think again has led to a lot of, I'd say that the way they can approach their business today is far more fearless, and yet anchored by great processes, courtesy RERA, GST, and their internal systems.
Can I say that DLF now is really entering what could be called as a golden phase of its growth? And let me just break it for our viewers. You had to deal with debt. Then you had to deal with COVID demand. Now debt is out. I mean, you're technically a net cash company now. You can easily pay your working debt. Demand has come back, and whatever land banks which you had and whatever projects which you've developed, pricing is simply much, much higher than what you had thought of. So there's operating leverage, there is price advantage, and if that was not enough, inflation भी नीचे हो गई है.
So अब देखिए golden age वगैरह तो बड़े hyper terms होते हैं, but in all fairness, yes, clearly
high growth phase.
Compared to what we were, say, 10 years back, we and the industry, I think the situation today is clearly far more positive, far more energizing. One is launching more. The pricings are far more attractive. The land bank monetization pace has improved. Leverage is gone. Internal systems and processes are far stronger. The quality of manpower that we have on the table is far stronger. The rental business is going as strongly as the residential business. So clearly, this is one of the better spaces that we have been in at least the last 15 odd years that I've been in the system.
Your partnership with GIC, 1/3 of the rental income goes. 1/3 क्यों दे रहे हो? I mean, is there a plan that you would say, look, that association eventually after 2-3 years may not last?
It's not that. I think you should have to look at it from a different perspective. GIC came in 2017 when DLF needed a partnership.
But can you buy them back?
They have been very credible partners, and we've not had a problem having that. They've been very positively contributing to the ethos and the strategy of the business. Will we want to buy them back? Will they want to sell? I think matters that don't make a difference.
There is no plan on the horizon.
There is, I wouldn't say that there is any plan
there is
on the horizon.
Mr. Tyagi, what DLF guided for at beginning of 2024, you managed to achieve that in the first 9 months. So it's simple maths that you will beat your guidance. But for 2025, when you'll give your guidance, are you likely to build in more optimism purely looking at your run rate, or you would remain conservative? वो पुरानी lineup सब जो बोलते हैं ना, under commit over deliver.
No. So last 2 years you are right. I mean, traditionally we give the guidance for the next fiscal during the May analyst call, which is what we do this year also. I mean, we'll be realistic. We've already outlined, Nikunj, the launches that we propose to do next year, etc. So it's a question of arithmetic. Obviously, we'd like to still, guide the market to what we definitely believe we can achieve. If the market helps us propel beyond that, it's great. But we'd really want to guide to a number which we are 100% sure can be achieved.
So when I speak to some of your peers, they say the following, that we are not going to be increasing rates disproportionately. However, we will increase it in line with the wage growth. Wage growth in India, it's a debate whether it is 5 to 6 or whether it is 2 to 3. What is your sense on price hike for DLF?
So, the residential pricing, I'll leave the rental question to Sriram, but the residential pricing, I think, will continue looking northwards, at least enough to offset inflation so that there's no net dilution in the margins. And depending on the product, the location and the appetite at that time and the market appetite,
But is the appetite strong for residential and rental both? Can I say that?
At the moment,
At the
yes.
moment.
Is this the best you've seen in last 5 years?
Yes, it's the best in the last.
And
5.
3 साल के लिए ठीक लग रहा है.
3 साल तो कहना मुश्किल है, but for the next 6-8 quarters तो definitely ठीक लग रहा है.
You've got assets which are about 50 million square feet.
Yes, in the commercial business, in the
And
rental business.
Which means the cash flow in coming quarters will only increase. More
Yes.
cash flow means that you will be able to develop more. You will be
That's
able to build more.
Yeah.
How will this equation change now next 3 years for you?
So what it is very clear that if you see our balance sheet and our profit and loss for the last few years, after meeting the debt obligations, we and the dividend that is to be given to the two shareholders, the rest of the money goes into growth assets. And we have been investing in the ballpark of 12 to 1500 crores in growth. In the next 3 years, we plan to take it up to 1800 to 2200 crores. So we will continue to invest in growth over the next 3 years.
Mr. Tyagi, I'll share the consensus number with what brokerages have. The number which a sum total of brokerages is that DLF right now has given visibility of about 32 million square feet. That's about 80,000 crore. Are you likely to change that number looking at the underlying trend?
So 80,000 crores of launches means a humongous square footage to be actually executed on the ground. I mean, frankly, we have identified the launch pipeline for the next 4 years, which is what this number is. Obviously, we are not saying that the sales of this 80,000 crores will all happen in 4 years or in 5 or in 3. That's a question of the market. But at least the projects which we have identified so far and on which the planning or the pre-planning exercise has kicked off, does show that this is the launch pipeline that we have. And that's what we are
How
working
much
on.
land bank DLF owns in the listed entity?
So in the listed entity, we have a land bank excluding Cyber City of almost 190 odd million square feet, if I'm not mistaken, in the last analyst report. And plus there's additional FAR that can be obtained because of the TOD and TDR, etc. So really, I think we have enough land bank for maybe a decade and a half to 2 decades.
So then why have you bought a piece of land recently?
Sometimes there are
have to.
micro geographies where you want to be there, where you don't have land. There are some opportunistic pieces that come in. So this one came in through a distressed banking transaction, which made sense for us, and we bought it.
But then why are you moving outside the comfort zone of DLF, of GURUGRAM also?
So we are not necessarily moving out of that. If you see,
Mumbai, you're testing waters.
So Mumbai is the only one which is a new geography. In Goa and Chandigarh, we had the land parcels. We had not monetized them in the down cycle. Now that the cycle is up, we are looking at monetizing those, frankly. And commercial, Sriram business, we've always had a national presence. We were amongst the biggest in Chennai. We are beginning to rebuild in Hyderabad. We have obviously NCR.
Nothing beats a garam chai in Delhi winter.
Yes. And this time the winter is a slightly longer ending one,
It's an extended winter.
So as we look at future, one is expansion, second is high rises, third is innovation. तो तीनों की बात करते हैं. Expansion, DLF phase 5, could it become 6, 7, 8, 9, 10?
So I mean, this entire, the Golf Co extension road where we had the harbour and where we just now acquired this land parcel of 29 acres with a potential of 7.5 million square feet is a relatively new microgeography for us ahead of phase 5. Privana is a place where we had land for a long time, but the development of it has truly begun now, you know, in that sense. And courtesy the infrastructure investment in the southern peripheral road and all, it's now almost become mainstream Gurgaon. So clearly expansion within Gurgaon. In central Delhi, we have a great project, you know, whose one phase has been launched. Hopefully new phases should come in the next few years. We are launching in Mumbai, we are launching in Goa, we are launching in Chandigarh. So I mean, that way the expansion, but we have no qualms in admitting that the center of gravity will remain NCR, you know, in that sense. I mean, we have no qualms in saying that is what it is and that is what it will remain.
You know, there are two type of buyers. One is the investor, second is a first-time buyer who's buying for consumption. Is the investor back?
So the speculator is not back. But the serious investor
is back.
Somebody who's buying a second or a third home as an investment is definitely back, you know, absolutely.
And
I mean,
NRIs, I think, are another major segment that have now been looking at India very, very strongly in the last year to 18 months.
so I think in the last launch that we had, about 20% of the sales was to NRIs.
Okay, that's
We
a
are,
huge number.
we are now regularly doing road shows in Dubai, Singapore, New York, London. Our sales teams are, you know, globe-trotting and doing, you know, road shows there. And a lot of NRIs are, at least, you know, everybody wants a house in Delhi if they are North Indian in that sense, or in Mumbai if they belong to that place. So I think that trend is increasing for sure.
Of the total rental portfolio, how much of your portfolio right now is something which is available for renting out, but it is right now not been going out as per the rates? Unsold inventory जिसे बोलते हैं.
So unsold inventory in our parlance is basically vacancies. So in offices, which is about 78-80% of our total business, 20 is retail. Retail, the vacancy is 2-3%, which is a normal, natural churn that happens. In offices, are split it into two: vacancies in SEZs and vacancies in non-SEZs. Non-SEZ vacancies are now low. They are about 4-5%. SEZ vacancies are about 14-15%. And they are there because the government withdrew the direct tax benefits in 2020, but have not allowed non-SEZ units to operate. Fortunately, the Ministry of Commerce has now come out with some guidelines where they are putting some clarifications in place. And I believe that this space will also start getting occupied in the next 3-4 quarters.
But that's additional supply also coming in.
So that's additional supply. But as I told you, if you have good locations, you're a good, responsible developer, you are scalable, then the emphasis is on doing it at you. So if, for example, we create a cyber city 30 kilometers out of where we are today, it will not be a success today. It may be a success 20 years down the line. So the locations that we have, we do not believe that we will have a problem in filling up the SEZ spaces which get denotified in the next 6-7 quarters.
And what about the unsold inventory? Is there a word called unsold? It was the most commonly used word by everybody couple of years ago.
4 years back, we had about 15,000 crores of unsold inventory. I mean, now almost, I think it's a number maybe under 2,000 now in that sense, frankly. So, because most of the new launches are actually selling almost instantly. So, if at all there are some, you know, smaller unsold, you know, areas in some old commercial complexes, or maybe some development in Lucknow or Indore, but by and large, I mean, touchwood, right now we are in a zone where inventory is getting sold.
Every time I've actually been to this part of India, the development surprises me. So if I come in next 3 years, what are the surprises I should expect?
So you should clearly see the road network in Gurgaon will dramatically be uplifted by then, you know. So I mean, there's already a southern peripheral road, there's a northern peripheral road, there's a central peripheral road that's coming up, the connectivity to the airport, the new metro line. I mean, this will actually be, Mumbai itself, as you know, is going through a dramatic infrastructural upgrade. But Gurgaon also, you'd see a significantly improved infrastructure, and we ourselves invested a lot in infrastructure in terms of the golf course road that we built. We worked with the government on the metro line, the rapid metro. So we believe that till the infrastructure is up to the mark, you know, sustainable value for both office goers and residential players doesn't really come in.
But really a question on behalf of shareholders here. Looking at your cash flow positioning, you are a net cash flow surplus company now. Incremental rental income, incremental residential income, everything will come together as a funnel, which means cash flows will increase. Which means for next couple of years, while growth is intact, there will be no QIP and there will be no fresh issuance and there will be no supply for the DLF paper in the market.
I don't think so.
Because you're feeling confident that a supply cash flow will be able to take care of it.
Exactly.
What a turnaround it's been. 10 years ago, we all were worried that what is future of DLF? I mean, will it go bust? It's such incredible and such a proud feeling when you say and talk about the fact that it's a cash flow positive company. It is growing, rental income is booming, and that is a clear reflection of commitment and I think vision.
So I think, and apart from the fact that obviously the macro and the cyclicity and everything is helped, I think the two pieces which possibly differentiate us is A, even in the worst scenario, we did not, pause the continuous build out of the products that we had already committed to the customers. So even if at times loss se banana pada, humne product complete karke diya, in that sense. That was, and B, obviously there was this constant commitment to improving the infrastructure around the places that we were building up, so that as and when the cycle turns, those would become extremely attractive geographies, and that's, I think, what's happened.
In life, we measure it both in absolute terms and in relative terms. So what's the absolute growth number which will make DLF happy? And what is the relative number on which you judge DLF?
So, I mean, in all fairness, what we have, this is a public, whatever we have said in the past, I think we clearly believe that a PAT and cash flow growth rate in the late teens to early 20s is, I think, what we should target.
Is it achievable, or you think,
I think
it is a realistic
3 or 4 years,
number?
hopefully it is achievable. Unless there's a true black swan event that happens again.
So I don't want to get this one wrong, and wrap karne se pehle, I'll just construct the maths here. The maths here is that if you grow the rental income and the residential income, if they both funnel together, operating leverage kicks in, which means that in next, if not the next 5 years, DLF should actually double, both in terms of profit and also
that is a fair possibility.
Okay. The rental income is growing and there is no slowdown whatsoever. In fact, for next 3 years, you see a crystal clear visibility.
Crystal clear is too sort of optimistic a statement to make, but cautious optimism for not seeing any hindrance to growth is there.
So in a cricket match style, there was a time when DLF had to come on the front foot and bat. And they had to bat like in T20 format. Dead bachao, sales karo. Can I say that DLF is now back to the test match strategy? More long term, more stability?
But hopefully also with a positive mindset.
Yeah, so baseball at its best.
It's a touch of, it's the best ball. Not the best ball that is being witnessed here, but the best ball of the Ashes.
So no ball ka risk hai. Thank you so very much. And when I used to talk to Mr. Tyagi, ये मुझे बोलते थे कोविड में उन्होंने चाय बनाना सीखा है. ये चाय तो
नहीं, मैंने चाय नहीं, मैंने खाना
बनाना भी सीखा था. तो आपने क्या सीखा था? आपने क्या सीखा?
हमने देखा था कि टेनेंट्स को कैसे रोक के रखना है.
तो उनके समय चाय अपने आप पहुंच जाती थी. But nothing like coming here and just experiencing that what commitment and what really hard work can do. DLF itself, I think, is a case study of true inspiration, hard work, labor of love, and vision, and a great teamwork from the management. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us on the show.
Thank you.